Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Village of Cary and the Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals, I'd like to hereby call this meeting to order on this Thursday, March the 14th, 2024. The time is 7 p.m. We have a quorum of members, and at this time, I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Mr. Brian Simmons, to please call the roll.
Graziano?
Here.
Jasper? Here. Randell?
Here.
Kretschmer?
Here.
O'Laughlin? Williams?
Here.
Castetter? Corey?
Here. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are unaware, to my right, your left, this is our counsel from the Village of Cary, Mr. Scott Euler. So I invite all of you to rise with us for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Thanks very much, everyone. So I'll begin with our petitioner tonight, and I'll just kind of step you through the process. I don't know or pretend to understand if you've done this before with the village or not, but I'll tell you what we do here, and then if you have any questions at the conclusion, you're welcome to ask any questions you have. What we've been doing recently is we've asked Mr. Simmons to give us an overview of the application, and then members of the ZPA may have some questions for Mr. Simmons. Once we conclude that, we'll turn it over to yourselves. You're welcome to add any additional comments or color to the application that you think is appropriate. Once again, members of the ZPA may have questions for District 26. Once we conclude that portion, I know a number of you are assembled here to potentially offer comment to this application. The way we do that process is through public comment. And what we would humbly ask you to do when you approach the microphone here is to simply say your name and address. For those of you that are unaware, tonight's proceedings do get recorded. So for those that are not here with us, they can go back and see them at a future date and time. And that would include our elected officials. The one thing I would tell the folks that if you want to public comment, it's not like you see on TV, like it's a prosecutor or a defense attorney asking someone a question and then they're going to respond back. We listen to the comments. We try to be an open-minded bunch. What we'll probably do is ask the petitioner if there's a lot of questions around this application to catalog those questions, and then we'll give them an opportunity on rebuttal to respond to those questions. But it's not intended for you to ask us questions and respond back, or conversely, for you to ask the petitioner questions and for them to respond back. It's simply to allow you to ask or make your comment. That's the public comment portion. Once we conclude that portion of the meeting, members of the ZPA may have some questions amongst themselves about the application, and then we take a vote. And there's going to be 3 votes tonight, and I want to make it clear to help you all understand why that's the case. One of our members is absent. We have a 8th associate member. And as Mr. Euler has kindly reminded me that if you were home rule, you wouldn't have this problem. But the 8th associate member by non-home rule is they cannot vote on variances. That's the rule. Not my rule, it's the state rule. So what we're going to do to be fair to the petitioners, we're going to call 1 vote for text, 2nd vote conditional use, and the 3rd one will be for the variances. So we have as many people involved as we can with what we have here tonight to do the democratic way of voting. So one of our members can't vote on variances, so that's the way we're going to break this out. Okay? So before we proceed with Mr. Simmons' overview, I have an administrative matter, but I want to ask the petitioner if you have any questions about tonight's process.
We do not.
Okay, thank you. So before we begin, just give me a moment, folks. Within our package here, we have our meeting minutes from the last meeting of February the 8th, 2024. You might recall this was the Alden Foundation for the senior housing. And unless anybody has any material changes to the meeting minutes, the chair will simply ask for a voice vote to approve the minutes. So those in favor of approving the meeting minutes dated February 8th, 2024, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Well, thank you very much, everyone. So those meeting minutes are approved, and at this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Simmons for Village Case 24, ZPA 02001. This is the petitioner, Cary Community Consolidated School District 26. And they're requesting approval for 3 items. 1 is approval of a text amendment, 2 is a conditional use permit, and 3, a couple of variances related to landscaping in and around the property. So over to you, Mr. Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, the request this evening is from the Cary Community Consolidated School District related to a proposed redevelopment of the Maplewood property. There's 3 actions that they're requesting approval for this evening, which include the text amendment to modify the regulations of the village from the Unified Development Ordinance to change the zoning classifications. 2 would be a conditional use related to the proposed redevelopment of the transportation center. And then the 2 variances, as mentioned, would be to increase the fence height around the outdoor bus lot from 8 feet to 10 feet. And then variances related to the landscaping and screening requirements for that bus parking storage area. As the board may be aware, the property is zoned R2 single-family residential district, which allows for both single-family development and related public institutions, so churches and schools would be permitted uses within that district. A brief history of the property. It was part of the original village limits back in 1893 when the village became incorporated. The gymnasium, which is currently on the property, was the first portion of the school to be constructed around the late 1920s. And in the mid-1940s, classrooms were then added to the property to make the first portion of the Maplewood School building. In 1975, the bus storage lot was constructed. You can see in the 1980 aerial there the relative conditions of the property at that time. And following the 1975 bus lot, the school district did do building expansion to the school, and also the bus lot was expanded roughly sometime in the 1990s. As everyone's aware, Maplewood School closed its operations around 2010, and since that time, the school district has at various times had the property on the market for sale. Has been under contract a few times from development perspective, but no formal petitions were ever submitted to the village for review by this board. Through the zoning process, those concepts were never through beyond just the concept phase of development proposals. The current proposal, as presented this evening, is to, as the school district is moving forward with their project, is to demolish the existing school building and the transportation center, and then reconstruct or establish a new transportation center on the property in the northeast corner of the site. As part of the plans, they would propose to reconfigure the bus storage area. As currently, it's more of a north-south orientation to more of a northwest, southeast orientation in the property. And with that, would also eliminate one of the athletic fields currently on the site. As part of their plans, they are preserving land for future right-of-way for the contemplated Maplewood access roadway, which the village is currently in a phase 1 study analysis for that site. Within the staff report, there is guidance related to the code provisions as far as the Illinois School Code that specifies regulations that the school district is responsible for as part of their operations that they're required to provide to their student population. As part of that is to provide bus services for their residents that don't live within, I believe, is 1.5 miles of subject properties or don't have a safe way to walk to school. As part of the code provisions, they also do have to comply with local zoning regulations, which is why they have submitted the petition for review this evening, seeking the proper zoning entitlements for their property to establish the transportation center as the primary use of the property. As with the school building previously being in operation on the property, that was the primary use of the site historically, and the transportation center was the accessory use from that standpoint, so that's where they both were allowed to remain in existence. But with the demolition of the school and the reestablishment of the transportation center, that now becomes the primary use of the property, and our code does not currently allow for the use of bus storage lots within the R2 zoning district. This slide just shows comparable conditions as far as the existing conditions with the school, an existing transportation center, and the proposed site plan with the reconstruction of the transportation center on the eastern portion of the property. As mentioned, they're looking to reorient the bus storage lot to be a more northwest orientation, basically paralleling with the railroad tracks. There would be a new maintenance facility building constructed, as well as 2 parking lots for employees. And on the north edge of the property, you can see there is an area that's reserved for the potential Maplewood access roadway to preserve right-of-way for that potential future improvement. As proposed, the petitioner is proposing to construct a precast building on the site for vehicle servicing and washing. 3 bays would be provided within the building for those services. They also would have office and training areas for staff that would be on the site or regularly coming there for training operations. This slide summarizes the required bulk requirements for the property and how they relate to the proposed development. Specifically, as you can see on the slide, the proposed development does comply with the bulk requirements for the R2 district. It will comply with the required building setbacks, lot coverage, density, and parking requirements for the proposed use. And the petitioner did provide information that the building height will not exceed the 30 feet. It will be about 26 feet, I think, is the total height of the building. One point of clarification, if you may have seen in the plans or the packet, there are some minor changes between a couple of the plan sheets. The original submittal that the petitioner provided, they made some modifications to reduce the number of variations that would be requested for the property. So the conditions for the overall site plan and the landscaping plan reflect the modifications that require or provide adequate parking setback in the front of the property along Prairie Street. So there's a 15-foot setback from the right-of-way there before the drive aisle begins. They eliminated about 3 spaces or reconfigured the 3 spaces. And then on the east side of the property, the fence line for the storage area was moved off the property line to meet the 8-foot side yard setback adjacent to the commuter parking lot. So those are 2 changes in the plans. If you looked at those closely and noticed those discrepancies, that's where the plans on the right are what the final proposal will be for the site plan. Is the property is required, is adjacent to residential area with the employee parking lot in the southeast corner of the property to provide a type C transition area. This basically requires a 15-foot landscape buffer, shade and screening trees plus shrubs. The petitioner is proposing to significantly exceed that with a 30-foot buffer adjacent to those residential areas and is trying to preserve existing landscaping that currently exists in that area along the property line. So in addition to those existing trees, they will be providing additional plant materials and along the edge of the parking lot to screen that area from the adjacent property and would be compliant with that code provision. As with any proposal that's reviewed by the village, we look towards our planning documents for guidance, specifically the comprehensive plan, which was adopted by the village in 2015, provides guidance related to the Maplewood property. Specifically, the property is designated as multifamily within the comprehensive plan, and that designation is appropriate for residential developments, including apartments, condominiums, single-family attached housing, and senior housing. The plan recommends that the site should feature a range of residential uses and that the site planning and design should be sensitive to the needs of surrounding residential neighborhoods. Further, in the downtown Cary strategic plan, the downtown plan provides some guidance related to the Maplewood site, specifically stating that the property presents a unique development opportunity to enhance downtown, bring transit-supported development to the area, and added households to support businesses downtown. Obviously, the school district is not, part of the proposal is not proposing to construct housing as part of the project, but they are the current owner of the property and they're looking to reinvest in the site. So some of the guidance that is provided in the plan that would be applicable to their current proposal specifically is looking to reserve appropriate land for the Maplewood Access Road, which is on the north portion of the site. They are preserving that land for that future roadway. And then also, that's a guideline in both of those plans to encourage access to and from downtown, the commuter station as well. And then also provide potential access to the subject property. Also, the layout of the site, the petitioners oriented the property in a way to try to limit the adjacency of their proposed improvement to the neighboring single-family homes so that the storage lot is located in the northeast corner of the property and parallel to the future access road and railroad tracks and not siting it directly next to the adjacent single-family homes, and providing landscaping in the immediate buffer yard, as mentioned with the Type C buffer yard in the southeast corner of the site. The three requests, or four requests that are before the board this evening are one for a requested text amendment to change the provisions of the Unified Development Ordinance. This slide summarizes the proposed modifications to the table of permitted uses within the UDO. Specifically, the school district or petitioner is proposing to add school-related transportation centers and storage lots as conditional uses within the R2 district. That change would apply to not just the subject property, but all properties which are zoned R2 within the Village of Cary, which this slide illustrates where those properties are located at. On the left-hand side, excuse me, the left-hand side, the areas that are colored in yellow are all properties that are zoned R2 as of today. So if that text amendment were to be supported, existing school properties, not just those owned by the petitioner, would include the Maplewood School property, the former Cary Junior High, which is now the Trinity Oaks campus, the high school property as well would be, and Briargate Elementary School would be properties that would be currently zoned R2 and owned by school districts. Within the Unified Development Ordinance, there are various standards that need to be met in order to support of a text amendment, which are summarized on this slide. First, the proposed amendment is not detrimental to the orderly development of the village. The proposed amendment shall not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. And the amendment promotes the public interest and not solely the interests of the applicant. As mentioned in the staff report, staff is supportive of the proposed text amendment. The proposed changes would allow the petitioner to continue to utilize the property with the use which has already been established on the site, but would also be limited in scope from a standpoint that it would only allow school districts that would be providing storage for their transportation uses or buses to be able to utilize, locate a facility such as this within a residential district. Other uses, or if the school district were to sell the property to another operator, could not be used as a storage lot other than for the storage of school-related transportation equipment. Secondly, a request from the petitioner then is to seek approval of a conditional use for a school-related transportation center. So the first request is to change the code to allow transportation centers to be permitted within the R2 district, and then as part of the petition would be to apply that applicable text change to the proposed property. This would require compliance with the Village of standards for the storage areas within section 14.4.4.15 of the UDO, which would specifically provide requirements for screening from public right-of-way or adjacent lots, which is the regulations for the type of fencing required around the storage area, and then landscape screening as well, which are related to the two variations that the petitioner is seeking this evening. It's similar to text amendments. There are various standards within the UDO for conditional uses, again summarized in the slide, that the use would not be detrimental to or endanger the public health. The use would not substantially diminish or impair values of property within the immediate vicinity. not contribute to an overburdening of municipal services, and is consistent with policies and future land use maps in the village's comprehensive plan, among others. Again, staff is supportive of the proposed or requested conditional use. The UDO provides specific requirements for the operation of a storage lot, and with the exception of landscape screening requirements that the variances will be highlighted here in a second, staff believes that the proposed use meets the conditional use standards based on the information provided. And the petitioner did provide information as far as response to each of the standards in their submittal requirements as well. The next request for relief this evening is related to a variance for fence height. As mentioned, the requirements for screening of an outdoor storage area require minimum fence height of 6 feet and state a maximum height of 8 feet. The proposal is seeking a variance to increase that maximum height to 10-foot high, non-opaque chain link fence around the outdoor bus storage area. As the petitioner has provided some documentation as far as the support or the reasoning for that fence variation, staff is supportive of the request from a standpoint of providing additional security for the storage of the bus area and the increase from 8 to 10 feet. Lastly, the last piece of relief that the petitioner is seeking this evening is related to the variance for the landscape screening requirements. And the slides, plans shown are a little hard to read from a standpoint, but the petitioner is proposing landscaping on the site to screen the parking lot areas from the right-of-way and adjacent properties, and then also foundation landscaping around the new building as required by code. The petitioner is seeking to not install landscaping or additional landscaping around the bus storage area, which would be required from the UDO standards with the inclusion of a chain link fence as opposed to a solid fence. So the variance is requested to not install landscaping around the proposed storage area. As indicated within the staff report, staff does have some concerns as far as the elimination of landscape screening. Understand the concerns proposed by the petitioner are for security purposes or security concerns to allow staff and personnel to be able to visibly look into the area to ensure safety of both equipment and personnel within the area. Staff does have some concerns as far as the changes to the site with the elimination of the school district, or not the school district, the school building will provide additional visibility into the area from the adjacent residences, and believes that some landscaping, at least on the south and west portion of the property or the storage area, should be provided. So staff is not fully supportive of the requested variances, but would suggest that landscaping be required along the south and west portion of the property to screen from the adjacent residences. Similar to the text amendment and the conditional use requirements, there are various standards within the UDO for variances, again summarized in the slide, but that the hardship and the relief sought was caused by unique circumstances within the land and not the general conditions of the district. The property cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the standards set out in the title. The relief proposed will not alter the character of the locality, and again, the relief proposed is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations. So finally, the proposed case, should the ZPA determine that the various standards for the text amendment, conditional use, and variances have been met, it is recommended that the ZPA take this at least in two motions. For one, recommending approval of a motion to approve text amendments to Chapter 2 zoning districts of the Unified Development Ordinance to allow school-related transportation centers and storage lots as a conditional use within the R2 district as detailed within the staff report. And then two, recommend approval of a motion to grant a conditional use for a school-related transportation center and storage lot variance to increase the maximum fence height from 8 feet to 10 feet, and a variance to the landscape screening requirements associated with the bus parking area, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions the ZPA may have regarding the petition or presentation thus far, and then the petitioner is here to provide additional testimony for their request this evening as well.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons, and very comprehensive as usual. Well done. So, folks, questions for Mr. Simmons? Okay, Mr. Simmons, I'll start. So some of my questions, Mr. Simmons, that you've actually responded to them, and I'll come back to them in just a second. Just for the benefit of the ZPA and everyone assembled here, when did you begin your employment with the Village of Cary?
I began in 2015.
Okay, and in your presentation, you mentioned the comprehensive plan and the downtown Cary strategic plan, both envision residential developments. Is that correct?
Yes, for this property, they both envisioned residential development.
Okay. One of the things that the ZPA is very proud of, and with the support of Mr. Simmons and others, is we developed something called a Unified Development Ordinance. And one of the best practices we adopted was something called the Plan Unit Development. And that requires a developer to come forward and speak with our elected officials first before they come to us for relief. So how many folks came to you, Mr. Simmons, with a plan unit development for the property known as Maplewood?
In my tenure with the village, we've had 3 developers that I know the school district has been under contract with. 2 of them had preliminary discussions at the board level that received feedback from the board, and then there was no formal petitions that ever went through the zoning process here, as I alluded to earlier, but we had 2 that had preliminary discussions with the board on the site.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Simmons. And to the best of your knowledge, although I know that those developers never consummated that agreement, what would have happened to the bus depot as we currently know it? Where was it going to be relocated? Was it going to stay there?
The proposals that we had reviewed all included the entire redevelopment of the property. So the entire 15 acres was planned to be redeveloped as part of each one of those 3 proposals we had reviewed. Preliminarily, so the transportation center was to be relocated to another property that the district owned at the time.
Okay, well, I'll follow that up with the petitioner in just a moment. My other question, Mr. Simmons, is that are you aware of any other written communication between the village and District 26 related to Maplewood?
Yes, the village has had several conversations even during my tenure with the school district regarding the Maplewood property, and we've gone through different planning initiatives with them and discussions with them. And late last year, the village went and the district engaged in negotiations regarding potential sale of the property. Ultimately, those discussions did not come to an agreement, and they're pursuing the project that is presented this evening.
Okay, so when did those communications formally cease, to the best of your knowledge?
The last correspondence we had regarding it was in September, October. Actually, end of October is when response from the school district came back that they were pursuing the project.
And would you have any knowledge of why those communications ceased? Was there any specific issue that you're aware of, or is it just the general agreement couldn't be reached?
General agreement couldn't be reached. I think from a standpoint, and the petitioner can provide more information as far as the background from their perspective and the decision-making to pursue the proposed project. It just, through negotiations, weren't able to come to an agreement for the property.
And finally, Mr. Simmons, you're well aware that, the petitioner is well aware that there's a requirement to notify any landowner in and around the property about 250 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Did you or anyone in the village receive any communication from folks about what's going on with the property?
Yes, the village received a handful of calls. I would say about 5 calls from the residents regarding the proposed petition sign that was out, and then there is information in the dais from a correspondence we received from a resident earlier today.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. And for the benefit of the petitioner, I'm just going to read into the record. I did receive one, and everyone in the ZPA has this in front of them. It says, Dear Patrick Corey, Board of Zoning, Planning, and Appeals. This is from Adana Floor. It's dated March 14, 2024 at 12:20 p.m. Regarding the construction of the transportation center, we would like to request attention to the light pollution in the bus lot. There is light, and it's aimed directly at our home and shines into our living room. So we are proposing that there be consideration of the residents that are adjacent to the land lot and that the lighting be aimed to the north or straight down. Regarding the demolition of the school building, we are wondering about the dust and the asbestos in the building and how this will be addressed for safety in the neighborhood. It says, thank you, Bonnie and Dana Floor, and their address is 332 Krenz Ave. So I'll enter that into the record. All right, so before I turn it over to the petition, I just want to double check with all of you if you have any questions. Mr. Williams.
I have a question. Brian, where would the access road be? Did anyone get far in, I just couldn't see it on a map or didn't identify it, maybe I missed it.
Yeah, so the land that's being preserved for the Maplewood Access Road, as we're currently calling it, is the northern portion of the site, and I'm looking to go back to a plan that shows it. So if you can see on this slide where the fence line is.
Yep.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
On the northern portion of the property, along the northern edge of the transportation center is a fence line that is roughly 46 feet off the property line.
Yep.
So that 46 feet between the fence line and land that's owned by Metra would preserve right-of-way or land for that eventual roadway. And then there's another 25 feet of land that Metra owns that would be incorporated into that area. So the roadway would run along the northern edge of the property parallel to the tracks.
And that would just connect all the way through, or it would terminate at some point?
Yeah, so the plans currently would look at the roadway would connect to Cary Algonquin Road on its western terminus next to the fire station,
Yep.
Industrial Drive, and that would connect all the way through past this property, the commuter parking lot, and tie into the intersection of High Road and Main Street downtown.
Okay. Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? So I'm not sure who's going to present on behalf of, oh, please, Mr. Jasper.
I'm not sure how to present it, though, so let me just kind of share what I'm thinking. We're looking to make changes here to allow them to build a larger transportation center on a property that we were trying to really work towards more residential and commercial use. By building this new transportation center here, what does that do to the remainder of the property? Are we, by doing this, are we, setting ourselves up to have nothing but a vacant lot through the remainder of history? Are there other plans in the works for the remainder of the property? What's going on?
Yeah, certainly I think the petitioner can give information as far as the long-term plans for the property from their perspective. From a development perspective, potential future development, the site still has areas that potentially could be developed if this were to be constructed. As you can see on this slide, so where the school building currently is located at, that would be converted to green space, and then you have the existing athletic fields that would remain on the western portion of the property. So the overall net developable area of the property would decrease from the total 15 acres that was existing with the new transportation center, but there still would be potential for the rest of the property to see some development potentially in the future. Whatever that proposal would be would require going back through a zoning process for review. If it's a housing project or other expansion, we would review that from a code perspective.
Anything else, Mr. Jasper? Thank you. All right, so I am not sure who from the district is going to present, but just remember, folks, that when you approach the podium, if you wouldn't mind just stating your name and address for the record. It again is recorded, and we'll turn it over to District 26.
I'm used to having the microphones that move to my level here, so this is a little fancy here. I like your setup.
All right.
My name is Dave Shepard. I am the business manager for Cary School District 26, and I appreciate the time that you are taking today to review our request. The decision to keep our transportation facility at that site occurred after many hours of deliberation and working with the village. I've been with the district for 3 years, so I came in at the very tail end of this process. And we have been in communication with the village throughout that entire time, trying to reach an agreement. And unfortunately, through our best, no one's fault and our best efforts, an agreement was not able to be reached. And we have reached a critical point with our transportation department. As you're well aware, we are required by state statute to provide transportation services for our students. They are a valuable service. They are the first ones that see our students in the morning, and they're the last ones to wish them good day at the end of the school day. And the current facility is falling apart. The transportation office is a used trailer that was bought used in the early 1990s, I believe. And all of this has been neglected over the years because previous boards have directed us to work with the village to try to come up with a sale. However, when it became apparent that an agreement was not going to be able to be reached, we moved into the direction of what can we do to improve the property. The property is in sad shape. What can we do to make this more visually appealing for not only our staff, but also for the neighbors that in the neighborhood that we are a part of? And that resulted in the plan that you see before you tonight. The thought process behind putting the buses in the furthest northeast portion was to keep them furthest away from our residential neighbors. We put great thought into how we can shield the immediate neighbors to our south, who currently have their property rest up against a parking lot that commonly floods and is definitely not appealing for them. And we have taken great strides to make sure that we can conserve as much of the greenery on that property and some of the trees that are still there. Once the project is completed, it will feature a fully furnished transportation center. In addition, 4 or 5 of the baseball fields will remain, and green space that could be developed in the future if the school board directed us to sell the property, the remaining part of the property. At this time, to answer the question that I know is coming about future plans for the property, at this time, the school board has directed us to hold on to the property with the idea of possibly utilizing it for future educational purposes if our enrollment were to increase. But there are there's no plans at this time to sell the remainder of the property. In reviewing the report that Mr. Simmons put together, we reviewed the recommendations for approval, and there are 10 of them. And of the 10, on page 9 of the report, there is a recommendation 5. A secondary access point to the storage area shall be provided to the future Maplewood access roadway and utilized for future circulation of bus traffic upon construction of the access road. The secondary access point shall be utilized as the primary access point of ingress and egress for school bus traffic. We made a decision early on in this process that we would work with the village, that we wanted to work with the village. We knew that the Maplewood access road was a top priority for the village, and we have left that space in the plans to accommodate for that. We are greatly concerned about number 5 in that planning for an access point for a roadway that is not currently there would not be practical at this time. We're also concerned about making that our primary point of entry, as the current lot is not designed to handle that type of traffic flow. The traffic flow is meant to go around the bus storage lot and down to the fuel pump, which is at the southern end of the property by the main office. So we would strongly recommend that number 5 be removed or modified so that we can adequately plan for the future if and when that access road were to be included. And again, keep in mind, we We have already allocated that land for the future roadway, knowing that it was a top priority for the village. The other thing that we would like to address is the landscaping issue. And again, our plan calls for meeting the landscape requirements, I believe, around the office area and the parking lots. One of the reasons why we would prefer that the fence line along the storage lot remain clear is for visibility purposes. It will be easier to spot if we have people that are in the bus lot, if there's no bushes obstructing our view. This is particularly important at night for our law enforcement colleagues if they are driving through the area to be able to see into the lot and observe any suspicious activity that could be occurring late at night. So we would respectfully request that the board consider our request for the landscaping variances. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or ask my team if there's any other additions that they would like to add.
The one question I had about the lighting.
If you just wouldn't mind
Okay,
introducing
sorry.
yourself.
Greg Staller, the architect from Cashman Staller Group.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl.
There was a question from one of the neighbors about the lighting. Absolutely, that lighting was probably put up in the mid-'70s. There wasn't any specific codes, dark sky or, foot candle count around the perimeter. So that is all addressed, and it'll be dramatically improved. With the addition of LED lighting and more specific zoning of that lighting, there'll be no foot candles extending into the neighbor's property. So that will definitely be resolved.
Thank you, Mr. Staller.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if Dr. White had any comments to offer or anyone else before I ask members of the ZPA if they may have. Please. And welcome, Dr. White.
Thank you. Brandon White, Superintendent of District 26. One other point that I wanted to address was the concerns regarding asbestos or the dust during the demolition of Maplewood. We have contracted and already bid that out to have it properly abated. So during that process, the building would be sealed to eliminate any release of asbestos material. So thank you.
Very good. All right, so unless there's any other comments from any of yourselves, I'm going to open it up to the ZPA to see if they may have some questions for yourselves. And,
I'm sorry, I live in Lakemore.
The long-term view of additional educational sites. We don't expect more growth. So where did your data come from that tells you you're going to need to expand more education?
So we recently did a demographic study in conjunction with the high school district, and it gives 3 different scenarios for demographic growth in the future. And the most reasonable outcome for the immediate future is that our enrollment is projected to remain flat. However, the demographer made perfectly clear that if there was a change in the housing market, perhaps interest rates come down, we start to see people sell their homes within the area, newer families move in, that could increase the enrollment in the district. The other consideration to your point as to why we possibly might need to use that for a future school or educational site is we do have other aging facilities that we currently do a wonderful job of maintaining, but we know that nothing lasts forever. And the available space to build additional facilities is just not there. So at this time, there is no present plan to build an educational facility at that site, but it is an option as the landowner that we hold available to us.
Your comments about the senior housing, we don't have enough. We've got waiting lists of over 100 at the current one. The new one that's going in already has a huge waiting list as well. We need to keep our seniors in town, and having the multifamily possibility on your site was very exciting, because we do have a lot of seniors that want to stay here. So I guess building a concrete building close to downtown, I'm just not sure about it.
thank you, Ms. Kelps. Anyone else? Mr. Jasper.
You mentioned when you were explaining about protecting the neighbors, the close by neighbors, you used the word flooding. my ears out. Tell me more. What's your problem? How you gonna fix it?
So, and I'll do my best to provide an engineering explanation here. There is a parking lot on the south. there is a parking lot on the southern end of the current facility that has a drain, and I don't think it's a functioning. It's clearly not a functioning drain. So when we have lots of rain, that parking lot floods. It can spill over into our neighbor's property. And this is all because the drainage on the site is not functioning. The drainage would be addressed via our renovation plans so that that issue would not be occurring.
Good evening. My name is Brian Wazalowski. I work with Gaywalt Hamilton Associates. We're the civil engineers for the project. And to add to your question, so all the design that we're doing here is going to be in compliance with the McHenry County Stormwater Ordinance. And currently, we have, I believe, 4 or 5 modern infiltration basins designed as part of these improvements. So the existing basin that's not functioning, we will be replacing everything that's there and modernizing the system to minimize the impact that these improvements have on the area.
Absolutely, Mr. Jasper.
You further on mentioned another phrase that caught my attention, which was your fueling station. So are you removing underground tanks, placing underground tanks?
So we are removing the current underground tank and replacing it with an above ground tank.
And you know you have no issues related to that?
Correct. At this time, we have no issues, and we've had the area tested, and there are no issues with the removal of that underground tank.
Thank you, Mr. Jasper. Mr. Williams?
Roughly how many buses do you guys currently use?
So we currently have a fleet of 27 buses. At one point in time, we've actually pared that back in order to be fiscally responsible for our taxpayers. But at one point in time, the district did have upwards of 40 plus buses. But we do plan on maintaining a fleet of about 27 to 30 buses with room for possible growth. We are also looking at the possibility of utilizing vans for transporting students who might receive services out of district for whatever reason. We're still required to provide them with transportation and extra slots that wouldn't be filled up with a bus. 'Cause I think our plan calls for 40 slots would be used for those type of vehicles if we were to have them in the future.
And for the record, what properties are you supplying these buses for? What are all the names of all the schools and all the different that these buses are servicing?
So the buses service all of our schools within Cary 26. That would be Three Oaks Elementary, Briargate Elementary, Deer Path Elementary, Cary Junior High, and Oak Knoll Early Childhood Center.
And what time, I only see the buses as they're getting picked up. What time do the bus drivers, or when are they leaving? Like, walk me through what happens here, because obviously as parents we only see the
Sure.
beginning and the end.
Sure. So our bus drivers arrive in the morning anywhere between 6 in the morning and 6:30. They do their bus inspection. They check in with the office to see if there's any changes to their route. They inspect their bus as per code. Luckily, I don't have any of my drivers here, I don't believe, to correct me. I'm not a professional bus driver. Then they do their route. And the junior high routes, I believe, start anywhere between 6:50 and 7:15, depending on the length of the route and where they have to go within the community. They pick up the junior high students, drop them off at the junior high at about 7:30 to 7:35. They then immediately go and start their elementary route, which then those elementary students are dropped off at 8:30. Within that period of time, we also have bus drivers that are picking up our youngest students for the Early Childhood Center, and also have drivers that could be doing runs going to schools within other districts that our students attend. In the midday, we have some of our drivers are free during the midday. Others will do a midday route for early childhood and kindergarten. And then they return in the afternoon around 1:30 to do the junior high.
So they do all the drop-offs, and then they come back to to this location right now? And then they come back, and then the bus drivers can leave for lunch, and then they come back at 1:30, then they go back out again?
Correct.
Okay.
Oftentimes when they are not driving, if that's often a time where they may have some training that they're required to do, or their transportation staff meetings, which are held regularly. Other times they are free to go during the middle of the day if they don't have a route that's assigned to them.
But the bus comes back, and then they can't like leave the bus it's not theirs. They can't go to lunch and leave the bus in the parking lot.
Correct.
So it always comes back and leaves.
Correct. In most cases, the bus is going to come back to the lot unless a driver has a specific permission to take the bus to their house within the community or somewhere else.
So you said around 1 o'clock they come back for the
Yes.
pickup and the drop. Okay. And then what time does it end? What are we looking like at the end?
Sure. So at the end of the day, after they've picked up the junior high, dropped the junior high kids off back at home, they return to the elementary, and I believe the elementary is dismissed at 3:30, thereabout. And the elementary routes are generally concluded by about 4:30. Most of our drivers are coming back to the lot and preparing to head home at that point. We do have an activity route that we started this year for our junior high students and at one of our elementary schools. Those routes return a little bit later, I would say between 5 and 5:15.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to get a picture of the flow of the traffic in and around there. Thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Williams?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Kretschmer?
Just a quick question. So, there's a number of areas, the school district owns in the village, particularly by the junior high. It's large open areas. Why would you decide to keep it here and not move there? I mean, you're building completely new, so why wouldn't you do that? And this is congested area. You got neighborhoods, the downtowns. It's hard to get the buses around in there. So why wouldn't you just think of the junior high area?
So I know in the past, prior to me coming on board, and prior to the current board that we have for the school district, the thought process was, well, we could move transportation to the junior high. Well, we started looking at this, and the natural spot for a transportation center at the junior high campus would be next to it on the west side of the building. That would pose logistical challenges for the junior high and Deer Path. It would cause our buses to have to cut through a parking lot to get back to their lot. And one of the best practices out there is you don't intermix bus traffic that's coming and going with people, having them go through a parking lot that has people coming and going as well. We are worried about the soils on that site. Currently, that section west of the junior high is a field, prairie land, with a fire lane that cuts into the neighborhood. We are worried about the soil quality there. We would be worried about congestion, especially intermixing it with the junior high traffic. And we would be worried about the congestion on our main drive. We looked at this, and in order to have a transportation center there that would be operating effectively, we'd have to build a separate exit and entrance for those buses, which would dramatically alter the landscape of that campus, taking away possible outdoor learning spaces for our students. We evaluated keeping the transportation center on site at the Maplewood property, and looked at the amount of miles our buses put on. The centralized location of that site was conducive financially for us, and it's a location where our transportation services have been located for years and wouldn't dramatically alter the landscape such as a move to the junior high campus would.
All right, so, I mean, there's a lot of room there. You can reroute those roads. You say soil issues. Did you take soil borings to find out?
We did not. We have not done that in the.
We did, yeah, sorry. We did do some borings, some general ones, pretty much closer to around Deer Path. And we did not do any on the top of the hill, like west of where the junior high is now. And and we did, I think, really starting like 10 years ago, we've studied almost all of the sites where there's currently a school. And the junior high, one of the big issues then is we'd be introducing buses very close to a neighborhood, much closer than we are here, because it would be located on the west side of the junior high. And we even looked at, could we do berms and things like that, but proximity would be very close. By the time we got all these facilities in on that west side, we were almost at a minimum setback to those neighbors. And we thought that would be a total game changer in lifestyle up there. But if you've been on that road in the afternoons or mornings, it's pretty much gridlock. And concerns we had is, the parents are all lined up down the street and buses have to get in and out. And so, and there would be difficulties in the buses getting in and out timely. We also had issues with just, getting, if there's an emergency personnel or emergency vehicles, getting those in and out the sites. So there was a lot of logistics, like David said, that made it, kind of prohibitive as an option. Does that help your question?
That's fine.
Okay.
So maybe I can just follow up on Mr. Kretschmer's question, but I'm going to give the others an opportunity to chime in if there's other questions before I do that. So my question, Mr. Shepherd, would be this, is that assuming that an agreement was consummated with District 26 by developers, I'm assuming the school district had a line of sight of where they would relocate the bus depot, the transportation center. So do you have a point of view of where that could have ended up? If it wasn't going to be at the junior high school, where potentially could that have been relocated?
So at least in my time here, the thought process has always been that transportation should remain at that particular site. In fact, the previous developer who was interested in the site had, when we were in conversations with them, still had interest in the site, even if our transportation center had remained there when we were talking about this with them. As far as potential sites, I do know that in the recent round of negotiations with the village, various options, we looked at lots of various options for a potential transportation center, and we were not able to find a site that we felt would allow us to carry out our mission to effectively provide transportation for our students. The stated goal of our board, my board, is that transportation should remain at that particular site. I know previous boards had a different opinion, but our current board has directed that, and they're quite clear that transportation should remain at that site.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. And I want to follow on, just so we're being good partners here. Ms. Kelps and I and others were in a meeting earlier today right here in this space. And I can assure you that what Ms. Kelps actually said is that the population within Cary, steady state to 2050, is projected exactly where it is. It's declined since I moved here in 2003, just to be forthcoming. And the other thing I would ask you to reflect on is that every project that I've seen that in the Maplewood project, whether it be in the comprehensive plan or the downtown Cary strategic plan, each and every one of those, and I've been personally involved in those, the landscaping in that environment that you want to exclude has been included. So I would just humbly ask that you give that some reflection, because every plan that I personally have seen is included that landscaping. So that's something for you to reflect on, please. So before we move on from this part of our meeting, Mr. Jasper?
I want to go back to the reasoning for
So in addition to the improved lighting that Mr. Stoller talked about that will give visibility to the property, it will have a security camera system that will also help us monitor various parts of the transportation yard. So there will be a security camera system. The access through the gates will be key coded, so our drivers will be able to gain access in and out with ease. It will be more secure than the current facility, but we would still request that visibility specifically with the lot, so that even with the cameras, it's always nice to be able to have a visible line of sight of one of our assets.
I'll just follow that up, Mr. Jasper. Have you reviewed that concern with the law enforcement people here in Cary?
We have had that discussion with our law enforcement partners, and they, I will say that they have been a great partner in helping us maintain security at our current site, even with Maplewood there, which has invited a lot of attention over the last couple of years. So we appreciate their support in helping us.
Good. So we do have students that, whether it's because of behavioral or academic need, that are our responsibility, that we are their home school district, but their services are met best elsewhere at another facility. And the thought process there is that it's going to be more economical to go longer distances with a van rather than a school bus.
Can I add one?
Please.
And also, there's federal laws that stipulate any student that is identified as homeless, if they find housing outside of the district, we would still need to provide them transportation from where their new housing is to their school whenever they experience the homeless period.
So somebody's homeless in Cary.
Correct.
They move to Crystal Lake. Why wouldn't Crystal Lake bus service help them get to their schools?
So that would be called McKinney-Vento students, and so law stipulates that instead of disrupting that student that's already experiencing homelessness, the idea is to keep everything else constant in their life so they can remain at the school where they already had established relationships and so forth. So that's the guidance of it. I don't have those numbers offhand right now, but we do have to keep data on which students we identify. Sure. Sure, I honestly, I don't have that number. Yep, thanks.
Ms. Gastetter? I do have two questions. Is your mic on?
Getting back to the access on Crystal Lake Avenue, do the buses go in and out of those schools from Crystal Lake Avenue?
You mean up at our Deer
At the
Path
junior-
in Cary Junior High? Yes.
Okay. Okay. And back to this Maplewood school, who runs these ball fields? Is it school-owned property and only goes through the school? Is it village? Who runs that extra property there?
The ball fields are school district property that we have allowed over the years the Cary Baseball Association to utilize. We do have a loose agreement with them where they have maintained the fields. That includes cutting the grass, maintaining the baseball fields, and they've been able to use the property. So it's District 26 property, but the Cary Baseball Association had been utilizing the baseball fields.
Anything else, Ms. Castetter?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to follow up, Mr. Shepherd. What I was driving toward on my landscaping question was that have your plans been reviewed by law enforcement from a safety perspective? In other words, what you're proposing, and they're blessing them to saying, yeah, we're really good with this, or no, we see some holes in this.
We have not reviewed these specific plans with law enforcement.
Okay, I would encourage you to give that some reflection also. And with regard to the present bus depot, has there been any vandalism or crime that you're aware of that's occurring today in that environment?
We have had instances of people getting into the bus lot and running around. Thus far, there's been no major damage caused to our buses, but people have gotten in to that secure site. The most of the vandalism has occurred next door at the Maplewood School.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shepherd. So before we open it up to the public, I just want to double check here with members of the ZPA to see if there's any additional questions for the petitioner. Okay, so, Mr. Simmons.
Happens all the time, it's fine.
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's okay.
I want to go back to, if this land had been sold and developed, as originally, and the school district advises that they weren't really able within their current holdings, able to find facilities to be able to appropriately operate a transportation center. Since you've been here since 2015, you've been a part of the process a little bit longer. Did the village recognize any areas, have suggestions to the school district as regards where a transportation center would be most effective within the village area?
And Mr. Shepherd alluded to it in our recent conversations, we did have discussions regarding potential sites within the community, not just properties that are currently owned by the school district, but we did research other properties within our industrial parks areas, examples, that potentially could house a transportation center or bus parking facility. In the past, when certain properties have become available in those industrial parks, I have relayed that information to previous administration in the district as far as availability for properties that might satisfy their needs, just from a standpoint of trying to provide them these properties are available and may be suitable for the bus parking and also the maintenance facility as well. That the original proposals that were discussed all looked at the entire property, but the discussions we had with previous staff before Mr. Shepherd's time and Mr. White's time with the school district, the plan was looking at the Deer Path Elementary and the junior high property for potential relocation of that facility. When we are actually looking at potential extension of First Street to the north, the village also looked at potential layouts of where that bus parking area could be. In the recent discussions that we had last fall, we identified several properties that potentially could work as well, but weren't able to come to a consensus of ones that fit the school district's needs.
Okay. So, and just to put out an assumption, I'm assuming that if it was off school district property, there's the additional cost of rent and such associated with it as well.
Yeah, and those are discussions that we had as far as the need to potentially acquire additional property. The village, in previous discussions and in most recent discussions, did discuss potential use or coordination of the public works facility on the south side of town for utilizing the existing fuel station that's there and potential parking on that site. But ultimately, again, weren't able to come to an agreement as far as what options would be feasible for the school district. And the school district provided more information as well. The light's red if you have it.
Ms. Kelps, we have some follow-up information for you. There are approximately 24 McKinney-Vento or homeless students within the district.
Thank you. All right, so before I open it up to the public, I think we're good here at the ZPA level. So folks, this is the time of our meeting now. Those of you that are assembled here, if you want to, you're welcome to approach the podium. Again, the kind of the rules of the road, just please state your name and address for the record, and you can make your comment. And if there's anyone sitting out there, I'll just wait a few seconds to see if anyone's interested in making a comment. Hello, good evening.
Hi. I hadn't planned on speaking, but in hearing everything, I just wanted to offer a few comments. My name's Christy Wagner. I live at 539 Krenz Avenue. Lived there for 36 years. If the buses were ever an issue, I would have moved a long time ago. Of course, my kids went to Maplewood. I have seen the progression of this whole episode. I've been involved here and there. I think going back to 2015, I pleaded with the school district and the village both to work together to try and come to some kind of an intergovernmental agreement, maybe even the park district. So I have spoken at other meetings regarding all of these Maplewood issues. Obviously, it's near and dear to my heart, and I would really ask the zoning board to consider that this is a chance to work together. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There is a transportation center there. It's been there, it's working. We don't need the additional expense for the district to reinvent a transportation center somewhere else. One of the issues that came up a short time ago when this was also being discussed was the Maplewood Transportation Center is more in the center of the district. And you are gonna increase time, payroll time, gas mileage, bus routes, all those things, all the logistics of that needs to be considered when you're thinking about moving a transportation center. It's a large transportation center. We have a big area to cover. And so I would just really ask you to think about that this is something that is doable, it's workable, it can be done. There's still the access road opportunity. And I would ask that Eagles not get so invested in this that, I know the comprehensive plan says this is going to be a multi-planned unit development, that's what the village wants. And at some point, maybe it will be. I agree, Holly, that there's a great need for seniors. I've aged up in this community. I'm a senior now, and I agree with that. But if seniors are moving to someplace that's a, 3-story building, then their house is going to be for sale, and somebody new is going to be moving into there. I just ask you to really consider some of these points, because I feel very, very strongly that this is a very viable option that the school district is presenting to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner. Appreciate it. So we've got some other folks up there, and I just want to double check with anyone that's seated out there that would like to make a comment. Hello.
My name is Jessica Parman, and I live at 533 Krenz Avenue. I heard some really good conversation tonight, good questions on the board's behalf, and really good answers on the school's behalf. I want to echo my neighbor, Chris. The buses are not a problem there at all. I don't hear any more traffic than I do on Main Street. I can hear actually more traffic on Main Street at 8 o'clock at night with booming speakers. So maybe a noise ordinance for cars would be great. But the buses are not an issue. The flooding, that hit a big one for me. That's a huge issue. Me and my kids bike through that area a lot. And there is a parking spot just behind some housing in front of the bus depot. It floods all the time. And it accumulates trash in that flood area. So that would be a huge positive if the school board would be able to fix that issue in their plan. The landscaping is a really great point of conversation. I myself have called the police because of the Maplewood property having vandalism. Especially around holidays, people are over there because there are hidden areas behind landscaping and behind buildings, and they light fireworks, they break bottles, and they break windows. So I think it's a positive that the landscaping not existing would provide a sense of security. So that was a really great point of conversation. The amount of parking spaces and potential with the school district's plan is pretty great. We probably need some more buses. With the rise and fall of enrollment rates, I know those bus drivers are pretty pressed for time, a lot of time, and they have to change constantly. So when the transportation schedule goes out, it's kind of tentative, and then they'll make adjustments based upon if students are late or not. So having room for them to grow is a positive. And then also, correct me if I'm wrong, when you don't pick up your child from the bus, where do they go? Either back to the school or the transportation center. So having a new transportation center instead of a rusted wagon where your kid's gonna be taken, that would be a great positive idea. So having reviewed their plan, I would feel more comfortable with my kid going there than the vacant Maplewood building and rusted shed in the parking lot. So the 10-foot fences as well, minus the landscaping, would really make that place a lot safer. I'm an avid metal detector person, so I go over there and metal detect all the time, and people are cutting through the fences. I can probably tell you that there's 10 holes in the railway fence already. And I have actually metal detected around that area and found a bullet because there is landscaping and access to the railway through there. So higher fences and less landscaping around the transportation area would probably make it safer for our neighborhood. But yeah, those was all the comments that I have. I really appreciate the conversation. That was really good.
Thank you, Ms. Parman. We appreciate your comments. So folks, another kick at the can? Anyone else? All right, well, before we potentially call this vote, I want to say that I'm actually in agreement with Ms. Wagner. I think both parties are trying to meet the common ground here, and I think everyone's trying to do the right thing. So for our petitioner, before I do call this vote, I certainly want, and I do this commonly with other petitions, do you want to reflect on our discussion further tonight, potentially ask for postponement in this request in an effort to go back and engage with your board and your administration, or at your choice, we can take the vote tonight. It's completely up to you, but I certainly wanted to give that opportunity.
Would that vote be for, with all the recommendations as currently listed?
Yeah, whatever's in the petition tonight. I mean, this, I can't presuppose what the commissioners are going to ask for, as part of our discussion. But basically, the way it's written, what I'm suggesting is that do you want to have a chance to go back based upon what you've heard tonight from the ZPA, from the residents, and have another discussion and potentially have another discussion with the village? Or do you just prefer, it's your right, to proceed with the motions as we've talked about? So the first one would be for the text amendment and the conditional use. There's actually two conditional uses, as you know, in the petition. What we're going to do is separate out the variances from the second one that you see listed, because one of our members is not allowed, per the law, to vote on the variances. So to make as many members of this committee available to vote, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have 3 votes. First one would be for the text amendment and the conditional use for the storage lots.
Give us a minute to
Yep,
confer.
you bet.
All right, so the question that we have is, since this is a recommendation that this board would be making to the village board, do we have the option, if we were to go through with the vote tonight, to continue the discussions with the village prior to their vote?
Yes,
which
you
is-
do.
Yes?
Yes.
I think we're good to move forward then.
All right. So with that, before I call the first motion, and Mr. Graciano.
One question for, you're concerned with item 5 in the recommendations. Was that regard to any access to the roadway or making that your main access?
Use the podium, that one just died.
So our concern with item 5 is making that the main access. The design of the transportation center would not allow for that to be the main access. We would not want to create an access point there now with no road currently going through. That would be like asking a community to make an on-ramp to the Route 53 extension, which is still in the planning stages, right? So that's our concern there, but the biggest concern is the traffic flow of the lot. Making that the primary entrance would just not be feasible.
In addition, one other issue or concern that we have with that access point, with that road not being fully designed yet, it's hard to understand some of the turning radiuses that would need to be in effect with the buses. In addition, currently it's our understanding that that road goes through the Metro parking lot. So if bus traffic needed to go east in the future, we would be sending buses through the Metro parking lot where there's a lot of pedestrians and vehicles backing in and out. And that could be an issue for the district during operation of that when they have a lot of the buses going in and out, especially considering a lot of that time when buses are moving is when people are going to and from the trains as well. And then as we go to the west, we're not really sure if there's a plan to have a signal over on Algonquin or not, where that new road would come in, and having buses over there having to turn out of that. That might be kind of a T intersection with how Industrial Drive is. That there's just a lot of things that we have concerns with. If that was the primary access point, that could be an issue for the district in the operation of the facility and servicing the community.
Okay, so you would have no objection to having a secondary access point, but we take out that second line that says make it the primary.
That would be correct.
Okay.
This is just for my knowledge, maybe for other, I am a retired school teacher and from a much smaller district. Any other towns around here, do they have their bus facility off of the grounds away from a school? I understand what you said about having this bus depot is really centrally located, but it seems odd to me that it would be not attached with any school in the district.
Sure, there are examples of this. McHenry houses their buses at a separate location, Woodstock, and while the Crystal Lake has two locations, one which is housed at Crystal Lake South, but the other one is off-site as well. So there are quite a few school districts that have separate transportation facilities that are not connected to their school facility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castetter. All right, so Mr. Graciano, any other comments, questions?
No.
No? Good. Are we all good amongst ourselves? So we're going to close that public portion of the meeting now. And before I call the motion, I want to double check here now with the members of the ZPA if there's any comments. The way I'm going to do this, folks, just so there's no confusion amongst us, is that I'm going to call the motion exactly as it's written on page 9, the first one. And then on page 10, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate those two. I'm going to call for the conditional use. That's the R2 request for a transportation center in R2 because our code doesn't allow for that. And then I'm segmenting out for vote 3 the variances regarding the screening, and there's 2 of those. So because one of our members can't vote. So before I go down that path, I just want to see if there's any comments or questions around that process. Okay, so unless I hear any other concerns, I'm going to call the first vote. And the chair will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of a text amendment to Chapter 2 zoning district to allow school-related transportation centers and storage lots as a conditional use within the R2 district as detailed within the staff report.
So moved.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Is there any other debate on that motion? Okay. Any other comments? You're comfortable with the way it's written? These items, 1 through 10, and then 10 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items in there.
And those conditions would not be.
I'm sorry,
That's
That's
apologies.
not for the text amendment.
Correct,
Apologies,
correct.
apologies. My mistake. Apologies to everyone.
That's why we keep us around.
Yes, you do, and thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Graziano. So with that said, we're just calling that motion as stated, and I'm going to ask Mr. Simmons to call the roll.
Graziano?
Yes.
Jasper? Yes. Randell? No. Kretschmer?
No.
Williams?
No.
Cassiter?
No.
Corey?
No. All right, so I think if I'm understanding this correctly, and for the petitioner, I did discuss this with council earlier, I didn't know which way this would go. We're not able to go to these other two votes, because this no vote doesn't allow us to get to the next vote. However, let me start with the good news. I know this is not the news you wanted. The good news is that you can continue to operate your transportation center bus depot as you do right now today. So that's the good news. And as I was saying to Dr. White, we commend you, and I commend you for the great job you do with our children in Cary. And I wasn't kidding when I was out at Malibu, California, talking about District 26 and what a great job you folks do with education here. That was precisely why, one of the key reasons my wife and I moved to this town, because of the education system that we have in place here. And I commend everyone that's involved in that, because our children have benefited, other children are benefiting. Now, the next step in the process is that stay in close coordination with Mr. Simmons, because we're making a recommendation to our elected officials. That's the process. And I think the next meeting, if I'm understanding this process correctly, will be on April the 2nd, a Tuesday,
Correct.
for you to present further. And you'll have another discussion. I'm assuming this is not on the consent agenda. It's going to be a separate item. And you'll have another discussion with the elected officials to bring forward the discussion you've had with us tonight. But I do want to say thank you on behalf of the ZPA for the professional way you've conducted yourself, and to the audience for the comments that we've received here. And we'll thank you for the great education that you've given to our children here in the community. It's well done and well received, so thank you very much. All right, so unless we have any other questions from the ZPA, I'm just going to double check with Mr. Simmons if we have anything else coming down the path for meetings.
I have one petition that's been submitted for another case that will potentially be reviewed in April.
Okay, so that would be the second Thursday in April, everyone? All right, and so unless we have anything else, ladies and gentlemen, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.